Miles Prentice has volunteered to do a short tribute to a man who, as I mentioned earlier, is not with us any longer. One of the greatest men I have ever had the privilege of knowing. He used to be here with us with great regularity. His name was Eugene M. Grant, better known as Gene Grant. And I believe Adam has put together a little photo display of Gene, as Miles does, a eulogy in a fashion of this truly great American, in every sense of the word. Service as a Army Air Corps pilot in World War II, through an extraordinarily successful business career right here in Manhattan, to his incredible philanthropy and support for organizations, not just this one, but many others besides. But he is dearly missed, and nobody will communicate that better than a man he came to really love in the course of their shared experience of the Center for Security Policy. Our chairman, Miles Prentice.
Thank you, Frank, and I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. Before we start, though, in honor of Gene, I like all veterans, including people who worked at AID in Vietnam, all veterans of whatever time they were in the service, to please stand and be recognized. Gene Grant was a most unusual person. He lived 99 plus years. He died in his 100th year. He had 3 months to go, and I was hoping like hell he would make it to 100. But his life was extraordinary. As Frank said, he was an Army Air Corps pilot. But let's go back. He was born in the Bronx in 1918, and he went to the University of Michigan, and he was an extremely loyal alumnus, Michigan. From Michigan, he went to Columbia Law School, and he actually knew some people that I knew that were at the law school. They were friends of our family. So my relationship with Gene went back quite a ways, although we didn't know it at the time. I used to have my car parked at Pier 40 when I got out of the Army. The old Holland American lines, it was $20 a month. And I used to walk to the subway from the garage, and there was a building that we had to walk under. There was a plaque. This building is under the management of Eugene M. Grant. And I always wondered who was Eugene M. Grant. But so fast forward about 30 years, and I had the pleasure of meeting Eugene M. Grant. And I mentioned to him, I said, you know, I used to walk under a building that had your name on it. He looked at me and he smiled and he said, you know, Miles, we did very well with that building. So here's a fellow lawyer, didn't practice law, went into real estate, but was an Army Air Corps. He flew P-47s in World War II in Europe, and probably flew at the Battle of the Bulge. I had tried to get him to record some of his history, and unfortunately it's been lost to us. Many of these veterans, we hear the stories written by the generals, but we don't hear the lieutenants, the captains, or the sergeants, and that's unfortunate. But Gene was an incredibly successful businessman. He probably was one of the smartest men I have ever met. He had an amazing memory, and to quote his daughter Andrea, before there was Google, there was Gene Grant. It was incredible. He used to play tennis twice a week until about 2 years before he died. He got up every morning and played the piano for 2 hours. He was a voracious reader, and I was privilege to have lunch. He was a member here at the club, and we used to try to get together at least once a month. And I used to tell Rosemary, my assistant, 3 o'clock or 3:30 at the earliest, because our discussions would go. And he was a wonderful, wonderful human being, and I miss him terribly. He really did a lot for the center. He was a true patriot. He loved America, and he wasn't afraid to say that he loved America. I asked him what his secret to long life was, and you all will be amused, but this is Gene Grant. Stay active mentally and physically, read voraciously, and do not take yourself too seriously, maintain a sense of humor, and keep moving. Do not retire. And this is a man who, until 9 months before he died, was in his office in New York 3 or 4 times a week. He was an incredible. So I've gone a little bit longer. My wife always says, God damn it, no longer than 5 minutes. I don't think I went 5 minutes, but this was an unusual man, and I really, we miss him. He was an extraordinary American and an extraordinary human being. So everybody raise their glass to Gene Grant. Thank you.
I just have to say thank you to not only Miles, of course, but to all of you. This is an opportunity for Miles to pay tribute to Gene, which he was supposed to do at his funeral, but due to air logistics and other snafus, he was unable to do it. So thank you for giving him this opportunity. Well done.